Hello, hi everybody. Thank you for joining us for the next session. In this session, we are going to be continuing our work on formula fields, and this is a topic we began in the second half of our session on Monday. Today, we're going to dive into a little bit more detail. We're going to run through creating some more formula fields. We're going to talk about roll-up summary fields and validation rules, and then I will assign you a homework challenge to do following this session, which is a little bit more scenario based. Thank you to everybody who's continually following along. Thank you for those who are following along in this session and online. And if you have any questions, again, please feel free to ask. Okay, so I am going to go ahead and present my screen. If you guys, hopefully you've all got Trailhead open, as is the norm these days. And we finished off on Monday working on a module called Formulas and Validations. So I'm just going to search for that. Hoping you can all see my screen. I assume you can because I can see it being shared. So formulas and validations. Good, thank you. Baba, yeah, thank you. Thanks, Samira, for sharing the link to the site. You'll notice that I've been just keeping that ticking along and going over. I was a little bit late posting it last week, posting Monday's session, I think, as well. So, but I've also restructured this so that you can find previous sessions a bit more easily. We're currently in week 6, but of course, if you just click the homework and recordings, you'll just get a menu instead of just seeing all of this week's stuff. So this week we're in week 6, which is a bit hard to believe, to be honest. So hopefully you've all got Trailhead open. I'm going to go and open my hands-on org so that I can go through and talk through some of the concepts. Now, earlier this week, we looked at the formula editor. We even opened up a horrifically nasty formula that I did in a previous life to show you some tips and tricks around making formula easier to follow. So creating paragraphs, adding comments, and so on. So we talked about formula fields that calculate data based on a single object, and then we looked at cross-object formula fields, whereby we pull information down to one object based on another object that's related to. So, for example, we pulled down the account number through a text formula field onto the contact object. We also did a days to close formula field, where we calculated the number of days left until an opportunity closes. We actually also did a power of 1 to find the number of distinct number of users that were covering a list of opportunities. And we looked at some of the ways that we can debug formulae. So we talked about missing parentheses. We talked about mismatching functions. We talked about results being incompatible with the formula return type, and we talked about just generally getting it wrong, or in other words, unknown function. So today we're going to look at a couple more examples. We are going to we're going to look at those. Let's go through and create these because they're so useful. Let's create a field called account website. And we'll use the example of a hyperlink function to show that field as well. So what I want you to do is in Trailhead, if you just open up your playground, whatever it's called. I'm a resourceful wolf. Some of you will be cunning goats, I would imagine. Sharon, are you unable to see my screen? Can everybody else see my screen? Okay, thank you. Okay, so if we're going to create a hyperlink formula field, what I think I'm going to do here is just demonstrate ways that you can do this. So let's do this on an account. We're going to go to our backstage area. So go to Setup and our Object Manager, which hopefully is a bit more familiar to you now. And we're going to go to the account object, and we're going to create a hyperlink formula field. Now, if it's a hyperlink, what that means is we have to create a formula that returns a type of text, because even though we are returning a hyperlink field, it's still treated as a text field in terms of the database. So I'm just going to go to my account and go into Fields and Relationships, and I'm going to click New. I then have to select the type of field that I'm going to create, which is a formula field. I'm going to hit Next, and we're going to call this Account Website. I think some good use cases for this. You could, if you want to show the same, if you wanted to show the same, there are two ways to create hyperlink fields. One is if you want to actually allow a user to enter a hyperlink, you could create a custom field of type URL, and that will just give people a box where they can put a URL link in themselves. What the difference between that and a formula field is, let's say you always wanted to show one specific, let's say you had another system and you wanted to pass in an account ID into a link so that you could then click on that link and it would open up the same account record in another system, then you could use a formula field for that instance. Jeremy says, would you want to put a validation rule in that case, i.e. must have? There are a couple of ways you could do that. So let's say in terms of business logic, validation rules are ideal if you want to make certain fields mandatory on certain occasions or for certain users or at certain times, versus making a field mandatory on the page layout means that you've got to fill it in all the time. The use case for a hyperlink formula field is less. I don't think account website's a good example, but the example I just talked about, which is creating a deep link into another system which relies on an ID or an external ID being passed into URL, then you could actually store that external ID on the account record in a text field, and then you could pass it in to this formula field, and that makes it clickable and makes it accessible to other systems. Wider discussion around identity and things like that, which could be had another time. So I'm going to create, so in my formula field, I'm going to select that the return type is going to be text. Then I'm going to use the hyperlink function. And as I said the other day, if you scroll down there's a box on the right hand side which has all the different functions in it. If you scroll up and down, you can find the one that you want, and it actually gives you the syntax that's required for that function, which is the kind of lazy way of doing it. I like doing it because it helps me to troubleshoot, and if I can troubleshoot, it helps me to learn. The hyperlink that we're going to put in here, we actually put our URL within quotes here. So if we were to say, sorry, have it, HTTP, and I link it to my own blog, what I'm effectively doing is I'm saying here is the website URL, and then the friendly name I can put in as being Gemma's blog, again in quotes. Check the syntax. Boom, it's green straight away. Woohoo! And I still get a little touch of satisfaction when it's green the first time, but anyway. Once we've done that, obviously put some help text in and a description. That's the right thing to do. This is how to get to Gemma's blog. Hit next, then you have your field level security, who should be able to see this field. And of course, it's always going to be read only because it's a formula field. It's deriving the value. Add it to all the page layouts and click save. Should we go and have a look at it? Let's go back to front stage, click account. I'm going to have a look at Burlington Textiles. And I'm going to go to details to show all the fields. And if I scroll down, there's my account website field. And when I hover over it, I can see in the bottom left-hand corner of the screen the link that it's going to take me to. So I open it. If I click on it, it opens up the website in a new window. And there we go. So that's how you do a simple URL field. Any questions? No? Shall we try another one where we do a discount? Let's have a look at discounted amount. And this will be on the opportunity. So we're going to go to Object Manager. Now this happens quite a lot. Oh, sorry, somebody has a question. In that case, it puts your blog on all accounts. Yes, it does. And that's why I was saying that I don't think this is the best use case for the hyperlink field, because it's not often you would want to put. I don't see a justification for necessarily doing that when you can, if you want to show the same link on all accounts, you could do it with a custom link that you put on the page layout, right? That's why I think the better use case is to actually produce a deep link into another system that perhaps is reliant on an external ID that you're keeping in a text field on the account, for example, like the account number. Or you might have an SAP identifier that's sitting in a field at the bottom of the page that no one else sees except system admins. And you could perhaps have that formula being derived from that value, and then, you know, just show it to finance people and they can click on it and look at it in SAP, for example. I think that's a better use case. And that's just one of the ways that you can integrate Salesforce with other systems. You can integrate through the UI by opening up like a window into another system. You could create a formula field that produces a link, or you could actually save a record in Salesforce and have it send a message to the other account over the internet, to the other system over the internet. So there's lots and lots of ways that you can integrate with other systems in Salesforce. So in this instance, we are going to create a discounted amount. And what a good use case for this is if you wanted to apply a discount to an opportunity amount. Ideally, I would be doing this at opportunity product and line item level, because if the customer's using products. But in this instance, let's look at the 12% discount first. Just on the top level, and then I think next week it would be good if we can look at products in more detail. Okay, so this is going to apply a 12% discount, round the result to 2 decimal places. So we're going to go to our opportunity. And if you're lazy like me, just type it in at the top. Fields and relationships, and this one is going to be called discounted amount. So this is, we click new, this is another formula field. Which I've gone past. And the return type, that's interesting, it's returning it as a number and not as a currency. That's interesting. I'm gonna use a currency example for a discounted amount. You might use numbers if you think that there'll be other currencies involved and you just need the amount in a set currency. I'll have an example of that for later. So in our discounted amount, what we want to do is we want to take the opportunity amount. So if we hit insert field, we see the list of all the fields from the opportunity, and we can click amount if we want, and we immediately see that the API name is amount. In this instance, as I become more experienced, I just started typing the word amount because I know what the API name is. But use insert if you're not sure. I certainly use insert for custom fields. Okay. So in this instance, we are going to round our amount. Actually, no, let's break this down first. So our formula needs to be, in order to discount it by 12%, we need to work out what is 12% of our amount. So to do that, first of all, we're going to multiply that by 0.12. That gives us 12% of the amount. And what that also gives us is the amount that we need to take away from the original amount. So we need to reference the amount field again, because we're then going to take away the amount. We're going to take away 12% of the amount from the amount itself. But then the final thing we want to do is round it to 2 decimal places. So that means now that we've got this formula, we know that amount minus amount times 0.12 is going to give us a discounted value by 12%. But then the rounding piece is something you have to account for. Although, to be honest, if you just put two decimal places on the actual formula field settings, that should do it as well. But this is more of a belt and braces approach. So round the result to 2 decimal places. So we're going to go round, use the round function, open the bracket. Then what I like to do is actually do a new line, because then that helps me to understand where I'm putting my parentheses, my brackets. So I am then going to, so what I'm rounding is this formula here, and I want to round to 2 decimal places. Let's check our syntax. You're not expected to know all this stuff off by heart. To be honest, in majority of situations, there'll be some formulae you use so often that you will know them off by heart, but there'll be other formulae that you go off and collect from various forums on the internet that you can then tweak and change yourself. And that's also how people learn to code as well, in many ways. So I'm going to put in my help text, discounted amount, rounded to 2 decimal places. Next. And this is discounting off the whole opportunity amount. If you work with products, then you may need to consider actually doing your discount. You need to consider what you're going to allow to be discounted. Because if you're selling a deal that is bundled up with, let's say you sell software, but you don't just sell software, you sell services as well, and that you've decided to give this customer a discount on services, but not on software licenses. In that instance, you could either create 2 different opportunities. One is for the software and one is for the services. But it's actually better to create one opportunity where you can, all depends on how you forecast actually. But in many instances, I would be looking at creating one single opportunity, which I can forecast, but then splitting my opportunity, breaking it down into sections, which is my software, my licenses, and that's what we use products for. We also refer to those as opportunity line items, because then we can apply discounts per line item, and the whole amount that is reflected is a sum of the discounted services plus the amount of the licenses, and that gives you that full, more accurate result at the top. I think I need to do a session on products because it's so useful. And I also need to do a couple of sessions on Service Cloud. Okie dokie, let's go and look at our opportunities then. I'm going to come out of the energy consultation app and going into my sales app, because I seem to be spending more time in there at the moment than I was anywhere else. And thanks for the feedback. Breaking down formulae is it is useful for sure, and it helps us it just helps us to recalibrate our thinking on why are we doing it and why are we doing it that way. So looking at opportunities, we should now see a discounted amount. So we don't actually have an amount on this opportunity at the moment. So let's play this easy. Let's do this really easily. I'm going to put in 100 quid. So I should see 88, that the discounted amount should be £88 in that formula field if my amount is 100, because it should figure out that 12% of 100 is £12 and then subtract that from 100. Yeah, so there's our discounted amount on the left hand side, our £88 there. And our days to close is now -1 because we were supposed to close it yesterday. Okay, so, and finally, let's do a checkbox formula that determines whether this opportunity is a big opportunity. And this is helpful for reporting, when you can identify strategic opportunities really easily based upon certain criteria. Jeremy, you have a question. You have an existing opportunity. How do you get the change to apply? It shows the amount unchanged. New opportunity work correctly. It should just work straight away. So because formula fields are real time, so the change will apply. If you've seen the amount unchanged, try saving the opportunity and you should see the amount changes. Because if I go and change, let's say I change this to 1,000, it should be about 880. Yeah, there you go. There are other ways that you can set these fields. You can't set formula fields with any automation, but there are other ways that you can create formulae in Salesforce. You can do it using automations, and you can effectively have the system calculate the amount and then stamp it into a currency field so that it can be used for other things. There's lots of different ways to set these fields. Formula fields are great if you, and actually just want to, I just want to pay tribute to this part, because there are times when let me look at per diems. Actually, per diems is a good example. And I know I keep going back to like a project and professional services slant here, but it's easier for me to understand. So if let's say that you are out traveling and visiting customers and you are given a per diem allowance for, depending on which city you go to, instead of being able to claim food, you'll be able to claim an allowance, say $50 if you go to New York. I'm probably getting this completely wrong. You might be able to probably claim about $150 if you go to San Francisco, for example. If those rates never change, you could use a formula field to calculate someone's per diem allowance based on and I actually did write this for somebody, based on the date of arrival and time of arrival and the date and time of leaving the city. It would calculate how much per diem allowance somebody was entitled to using formula fields. But that wasn't really very scalable, because that relies on what you do in the formula is you can kind of say, right, if they go to New York, it's this amount. If they go to San Francisco, it's this amount. And if they go to this place, it's that amount. Calculate the number of days and half days. It might be a different amount if they're only there for half a day versus, a whole day. So it got interesting, and in the end, the customer at the time said to me, our per diem rates never change. So that told me that I could potentially put the rates into the formula field, but I didn't like doing it, and I didn't trust that the rates would never change, because sure enough, I said to them, are you absolutely certain? Yes, they never ever change. Okay, and there's only these 5 cities. Yeah, okay, that's okay, that's fine. 4 months later, Gemma, can we have a call? Yeah, sure. Let's get on the phone. Our per diem rates have changed and we've added more cities. I was like, great, fantastic. Okay. So I kind of knew that was coming. Yeah, we need to just change it. Can you help us? I'm like, well, you can't just change it. I've now got to resolution the whole thing. It didn't take a long time to do, but what we ended up doing was to make it more scalable was to actually store. We created a table. This is back in the day before we had custom metadata types. We created a table which had the name of the city and the rate, and then a rate effective date and an active box, so that our formula fields would basically loop through this list of rates to find the right one that was active at the time and check that it was still in date. And what that meant was, as per diem rates changed over the years, people could go in and deactivate old ones and add new ones in, and they could deactivate old city or add more cities and help it to scale, and they wouldn't have to go and change the formula field, because the formula field would look at, I actually made it so that it would look at variables instead of looking at hard-coded figures. Hopefully that makes sense. You can do the same using Flow in Salesforce to automate the calculations as well. But anyway, I'm rambling. I'm going to stop rambling. So let's do a checkbox formula, which I probably started talking about 10 minutes ago before I went off on a tangent. This formula field is going to check whether the number of employees at the opportunity accounts associated company is greater than 1,000, and whether the opportunity amount is greater than 10,000. If it's both true, then the field appears as a text box. That was very wordy. So let's strip this back and look at the requirement. Someone comes up to you, by the way, and says in an admin job and says, Gemma, can you just create me a checkbox formula that determines whether a particular opportunity is a big opportunity and checks the number of employees and blah, 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 blah. That's the point where I'm going, shush, come with me. We're going to a meeting room and you're going to explain this in more detail. And I'm going to end up drawing. So what constitutes a big opportunity? Well, the number of employees is greater than 1,000. Great. What else constitutes a big opportunity? Well, if the opportunity amount is greater than 1,000, well, does the company have to have, what's more important to you, the number of employees or the opportunity amount? And they go, well, actually, they're both equally as important. Okay, so that tells me that, it's a big opportunity if it is greater than 1,000 employees, which is what we define as a business to be our strategic accounts, because we've got more chance of penetrating and therefore more chance of creating more revenue. But also whether the opportunity is greater than 10K. So, and what that tells me is that in terms of sales strategy, is that it's wonderful if they get opportunity amounts that are greater than 10K, but it's amazing if they get opportunities amounts that are greater than 10K from these accounts, which are the accounts that we really want to go after, because we can see a lot of potential to grow the business there. Make sense? These are the times if people come up to me and ask me for these fields, I'm just like, yeah, okay, whatever, let's go talk about it. So let's go to an opportunity, back to our opportunity. We're going to create a new formula field. Formula, hit next. Big opportunity, and I might actually put an exclamation mark, a question mark there, because it will help me to identify it, because the answer is going to be yes or no. That's what really a checkbox is doing. So our return type is a checkbox. We're going to hit next. And we're going to say, okay, the opportunity is related to an account, right? And on the account, we've got a field called number of employees. So to get through to that field, we have to go through the opportunities relationship with an account. And as I said the other day, make sure it's the right account relationship. Sometimes there are custom fields that look up to accounts that are added on top of the standard one. So let's go to account. We're going to look for a field that's just called employees. And you'll be able to see here, the API name is called number of employees. The label is employees. They're not always the same, so just watch out. Hit insert. That tells us we're getting the number of employees field from the account. We also want another field called the opportunity amount, and that is on the opportunity itself. So it's just a standard amount field. So let's look at what else we need to know. So the business logic says that if the account is bigger than if the account's number of employees is greater than 1,000. So let's just account for that assessment there. So account is number of employees is greater than 1,000, and we want to know if the amount is greater than 10,000. At this point, I will then go back to the business and say, does it have to be greater than 10,000, or are you interested in opportunities that are 10,000? In which case, if they say, well, both, then you can use greater than or equal to. You see what I did there? I said greater than equal to 10,000. Now, this is going to hit red straight away. It's going to go, oh, I don't know what you're trying to ask me to do. So straight away, syntax error, extra amount. Because I've actually got no brackets there, I've got no commas there. All I've done is just put two mathematical equations next to each other, and I haven't told Salesforce what to do with them. So what you can do if you really want to, some people do this, they use operators like that. Let's have a look at that. And, you know, it gives you no syntax errors. My preference personally, and what I'm going to do now is just show you a little trick that I've got, which is to comment things out so that you can try different approaches. To comment in a formula, you just put a forward, you just do a asterisk and a forward slash. And then at the end, you do a, oh, hang on. No, you don't. You do forward slash asterisk. Oh, I've got myself tied up in knots. I can't remember. And then you do, you see what I'm doing here? I'm opening up my comment with asterisk and a forward slash, and then I'm closing it with a slash and an asterisk. And what that does is it just means it's, I've done it the wrong way around. Forward slash asterisk. I've got myself tied up in knots overthinking it. Because I do it naturally, so I forget when I want to explain it. So that should have just commented everything out. Yep, found end of formula. So, because what I've done there is I have just commented all of it out, so it's not actually going to recognize this as being a formula. Because I want to show you the other way that I like to do things, and that's using words. So, in terms of using words, this is a really simple one. Your and sits above your two formulas. And when you are wanting Salesforce to calculate this and that, your and is kind of a wraparound with a comma that separates both equations. So I'm going to open up my bracket here, and just for this is how my brain works when I'm writing formulas. If everything I open, I find a place to close first. If I look at this now, it's still going to yell at me. It's going to say extra something, extra amount, or sorry, missing bracket. Now the missing bracket isn't a missing bracket at all. It's a missing comma. So if I check the syntax, it's green. So you can use either of these notations in your formula field. Something else I like to do is just to explain. Yeah, that's it. I like to explain what this is doing. Business logic dictates. Another thing you could do is just say author, Gemma Blizzard, last modified date, as you would if any of you are programmers. Yes. So the and doesn't want just two arguments. You can actually put lots of arguments in there, Jeremy. So you can it's up to you. You can put in as many arguments as you need and until you reach the compilation limits, and then Salesforce will yell at you for having too many characters in your formula field. Last modified date is 29th of April 2020. Reason, and then here you can build up an audit trail straight away, which means someone doesn't have to look into the into the description. Samira says, do comments count towards formula field characters? No, they don't. Not as far as I have seen. So the reason is business logic for strategic accounts. It may be that you have to come back next year and change this, because if someone turns around and says, actually our strategic accounts are now over 10,000 employees because the business has grown and the amount is over 100 grand, that's when you've got to think about this carefully, because if you go and change your formula field, it's going to go back and change all the other accounts, all the other existing opportunities, because this is a formula field and it works in real time. So opportunities that were big opportunities last year might not be ticked anymore. So you have to consider that, because, and the questions that might, if someone comes up and says, can you change it? I just want it changed. That's the point when you kind of say, all right, so what kind of comparison analysis what kind of analysis and comparisons will you make between last year's big opportunities versus this year's big opportunities? Because if you are ever going to care about that, then that means I need to actually make a record of the fact that it was once a big opportunity somehow. And it might change the whole solution. At this point, this is the point where I'm just like, okay, this isn't a formula field with a checkbox anymore. This is a checkbox, and I need to go and tick it for all of this year's big opportunities. And then going forward, I need to create a process builder that's going to run when an opportunity is created based on whatever logic is live at the time, and go and set that checkbox at the time. Hopefully that makes sense. Adam says, is there a Chrome extension or any other type of rich text editor that would help with syntax? Yes, there are a few of them knocking around. Salesforce Formula, Salesforce. I know that Organizer, if you look at Organizer, O-R-G, well, it's just spelled O-R-G-A-N-I-Z-E-R. That helps you manage all the logins that you use, but it also gives you a rich text editor for formula fields. Let's editor. There we go. Salesforce Formula. Chrome extension. There we go. Google is your friend. So enhanced formula editor. I'm going to give this a whirl, actually. Oh, you have to buy it, but it will give you something like this that will help you to figure out what you're doing, and they are very useful. I had one switched on for a while, and then I just got fed up of it. So I'm going to close off my comments, and I'm going to leave that here. Now that should be fine. Hit next. I hope that was useful. Just yell if you think I'm babbling. I'm going to add it to my page layout, and I'm going to save it. I'm coming back to my Get Cloudy. I'm refreshing the page, and now I should see a checkbox. My daughter's suspiciously quiet. I don't know what she's doing. Okay, so there's our big opportunity flag, and it's not a bigger opportunity because it's less than 10 grand. Let's see what happens if I change the amount to be 50 grand. Now, obviously, I would expect my discounted amount to change, to 44 grand. But it's still not ticked as a big opportunity because we don't know how many employees there are at Get Cloudy. So let's go and have a look at that. Notice I've opened that in a new window. There is a console view you can enable for your apps that will enable you to just flick between different tabs without opening up a new browser window. Go to details. And let's look at employees, right? So there are 0 employees. So let's put 1001. And let's go back to here. And I'll have to refresh the page to see the change. Hit details. And there we go. We've got our big opportunity flag. So then you can use that as a filter in your list views or in reports. Just bearing in mind that, you know, in that formula field, we've got hard-coded amounts. So you've got to think about the scalability of that field. How long is that field going to last for versus how long is this current strategy going to last for? Okay. So we've got an assessment to do, ladies, gentlemen. We have got to create a formula field that calculates the number of days between the end date of a contract and today. So if you're all ready for this, let's go to our object manager and go to the contract object. Try not to click on contact by accident. Now, I wonder if I did this already. Yes, I did. So we're going to create a new formula field, which is called days remaining and returns a number. Has everybody here done this one already, or do you need me to go through it with you? Done it. Okay. Well, if you haven't done it yet, if you could please go to the contract object, create days remaining. Make sure that it's called days remaining, exactly as you see it there. And then you have your formula syntax is going to be the end date of the contract minus today with open and close parentheses. And then when you're ready, just click check challenge. And Steve is fast asleep. Bless him. Okay, shall we go to the next? Sorry, before we go to the next one around roll-up summary fields, does anybody have any questions about formula or any feedback? Anything that I've missed? Anything you would like me to go over again before we move on? Okay, maybe I'll stick some advanced formulas in for you then. Okay, so next one, I want to talk to you about roll-up summary fields. How many of you can remember what type of relationships can you build in Salesforce? What are the two types of relationship field that you can build when you create a new custom field? Lookup, yes, lookup is one of them. What's the other type? Master detail, that's exactly right. You can create a master detail relationship. Does anyone want to take a stab at what they think a roll-up summary field is and what it does? Samira says it adds up some amount. Yes, it does do that. Related to the object. Yes. What type of relationship? That's correct. It is master detail. So if you have two objects related via lookup, you can't roll up one object to the other using a roll-up summary field. You've got to do it with some witchcraft. But if you have a master detail field relationship between two objects, what that means is you have a parent and child relationship, and a roll-up summary is a way of rolling up, aggregating numbers from all the child records and rolling them all up and putting them onto the opportunity. An example of where you can see that functionality in action without doing a roll-up summary field is actually through opportunities and products. Opportunities and products have a natural standardized parent-child relationship, and up until the point where you add products to an opportunity, you can edit the amount of an opportunity. When you start adding products to it, Salesforce then aggregates the opportunity amount from the total price of all the products that are related to it. With roll-up summary fields, this is where we create our own relationship between two objects. Now, there are some limitations. that in terms of what you can relate, what objects you can relate together using master detail relationships. My understanding is that you can't have a standard object become a child of a custom object. You have to create a junction object in between and then roll up using those instead. Excuse me just a moment. Molly, Grandad's on the phone. Okay, I'll just leave it. So while formula fields calculate fields in a single record, roll-up summary fields calculate values from a set of related records, like the ones that are in a related list. So you can create a roll-up summary field that automatically displays a value on the parent based on the summary of all the values on the records of a detail record. There are limits here as well. You cannot roll up the result of a formula field, okay? So you can perform different kinds of calculations. Here are some examples. You could do an account field that calculates the total of all related pending opportunities. So, and that's quite a common use case. You might have a field on an account that says, what's the current pipeline for this account? And you just roll up sum of all opportunities amounts where closed equals false. And that will just tell you the current pipeline amount. You can also do a total sales to date. You can use roll-up summaries to calculate the amount that you've sold to that account. And that enables you again to create list views or add or go and collect contacts against that account that you might want to add to a marketing campaign. You could also create a custom order field that sums up the unit prices of products. And another common use case for that is actually doing a calculating how much your salespeople are selling off or deviating away from the book price of a product that you're trying to sell. So you might, as a business, decide that this pen should always cost £5. But if your sales guy is discounting it at £3, you might want to see that, right? So you can calculate that and stamp it into a field on an opportunity product and then roll it up and then perform create other formulae based on that amount that tells you how off-piste your salespeople are going. So it helps you to kind of gain further insights into some of the behaviours and therefore understand why. Things like why is your sales guy deviating so vastly from the price? Is it because maybe the price is too high, or the customer was in a certain position, or there was a relationship issue, or there could be many reasons. But it helps you, if once you have that insight, you can make decisions about how you sell and how you coach and how you support your sales team. So defining a roll-up summary field, they are based on master detail relationships. These link objects together so that your master controls specific behaviors of the detail and sub-detail records. So we talked about sharing last week. If you've got a master detail relationship, you only really share, you create sharing rules that handle the parent because the child records will inherit the same sharing settings as a result. So it's a similar concept with this. So you define a roll-up summary on an object that's on the master side of a master detail relationship. So two things to remember: when you want to relate two objects together through master detail, you create the relationship on the child, because that's where your parent record is going to be shown. And then you create the roll-up summary on the parent. There are a few types of summaries you can use. You can count the number of related records. You can add up a currency or number value that's on the child. You can also add up a percentage value. You can display the minimum value, so the lowest value of any field. So if you wanted to see what's the lowest value opportunity on this account, you could create a master detail relationship that returns the lowest amount out of all. It returns the lowest amount out of all the opportunities that are related to that account. And then on the opposite way, if you want to say what's the highest value deal that we closed won with this account, you could create a roll-up summary field that shows a maximum, which is the highest value of the account field, and says this is the biggest deal we've sold. So let's have a go. Accounts and opportunities have a natural parent-child relationship. When you start if you start creating custom objects, that's when you got to think about things like, will I ever need to aggregate information to see, for example, expenses? You're going to want to see the total value of an expense report, and then you're going to want to see all of the individual expenses beneath. That's quite a common scenario where you might roll up the total amount of the expense report, because you might have that, because depending on the size of expense report, it might have to be routed off to a different person for approval, for example. So let's have a go. Let's create on the account record. So we're going to go back to our object manager and we're going to click account. Fields and relationships. What are we doing here? We are adding a total sum of all the opportunities that are on that account. So let's give that a go. New. And then you will see the option to create a roll-up summary field. You'll notice that any derived and calculation fields are shown in their own section. Any relationship fields are shown in their own section. And then any fields that are editable by users are shown in a section of their own. So roll-up summary. And this is just going to be called sum of opportunities. Spelled correctly. I hope. The total value of all opportunities related to this account. Next. And then you're presented with this page. Now this page is quite straightforward. It's split into first section is where you say, what object am I rolling up to my account? What am I summarizing? And it will only show objects that are related as children to this current object. So I'm going to select opportunities. Then you'll notice that this section becomes enabled. You then choose, what do I want to do? Do I want to do a count of all the opportunities that are on this account? No, I want to add them all up. So I'm going to hit sum. And then I can select in here, what field do I want to sum up? I've got amount, discounted amount. Oh, I can do it with formula now. Okay, that's changed. Expected revenue, probability, percentage, or quantity. I'm just going to use amount. And I'm just going to say that all records should be included. There are other options, which we'll look at in a moment. So we hit next. We say, this should be looking very familiar to you now. You've got your field level security and your page layouts. So when I save that, and I go back to my front stage and open up the account for Get Cloudy, I should now see the total value of opportunities shown in a summarized way on my account. If I scroll down underneath my blog link. Oh, where'd you go? Where'd you go? This is where I get really embarrassed because, cursor the demo. Now, what tends to happen with roll-up summary fields is once you've created them, they have to go away and do some mathematics. So it runs a job on the platform that calculates what the amount should be to date, and that's sometimes what can take the time to show up. Okay, right, I shall be patient and wait for that one. Let's have a look at another one. Oh, you have it on yours, Kat. Okay, that's good. So let's look at another one. The date and opportunity was first created. This is a valuable one. It helps you to understand the age of an account and the age of a relationship with a potential customer. So let's create a roll-up field on the accounts object. So new. Now, this is where you would want to look at, okay, what was the date the opportunity was first created? But then if you wanted to say what was the date that I first sold to this customer, then you would add some filters to it. Sorry, Chimson, you have a question on how are you seeing it? Sometimes it just takes a minute to display on the page. If you switch to classic, you'll be able to see it immediately. Oh no. Okay. Not to worry. So we're going to do another roll-up summary field. Yeah, it does. Yeah. So this is going to be the date opportunity first created. I think the daughter's going to come out very wrinkled. She's still in the bath in the first hour. Yes, so Kat says things work in classic instantly, but we're still in Lightning because it's nicer. It is nicer. It is also where there are more features that are user-centric. You've got more productivity features in Lightning, for sure. So hit next. Then we're going to go to, we're going to summarize opportunities, and we're going to use a min roll-up type here, because we're going to actually look at the minimum created date. So what this tells Salesforce to do, you couldn't find it on the field to aggregate. Okay, were you looking? Okay, that's odd. So because it's going to loop through all the opportunities that are related to this account, we want to just show the earliest date out of all of the opportunities that are on the account. So we're going to use min, and we're going to aggregate the created date. Now, if you wanted to go a bit further and say, what's the earliest date that we created an opportunity that was then closed won, we could add some field filters and say stage equals closed won. But that tells you something different as a business. Okay, next. And save. Right, okay, so some people in the chat have said they don't have the amount. So what you want to make sure is that you're on the account object, and that you are, in your roll-up summary, you're selecting the opportunity. Okay. That's really weird that you've had that. I'm hoping my roll-up summary will have finished calculating by now. Let's have a look. No, it does not like me right now. Let's switch to classic and just make sure that this has worked. Okay, back to get cloudy. Ah, ha, 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 right. So to troubleshoot this, you should find that the fields will show up halfway down your page. But for the first instance, when I was looking at this, I was concerned that it could be field level security issue, but it's not. So I can see that the date opportunity first created is there. The sum of opportunities is there. It's a glitch. So when I switch back to Lightning, yeah, this might be a known issue, but I'll report it anyway. Go back to details. Oh yeah, it's definitely not showing, is it? Okay, well at least we know it's there. Okay, so obviously we're having some issues with being able to see it in Lightning at the moment. But if you switch to Classic just to check that it's worked, then that's the test that you need to do. I'm pretty sure if you come back a little bit later, you'll be able to see the information in Lightning. Sometimes it just takes a minute to come through. So the next one, total price of all products related to an opportunity. So this one is an interesting one. So we're gonna create a roll-up field on the opportunities, and it's going to be called total price. And now would probably be a good time to explain what all these fields mean on the opportunity product when we get there. So our new field is going to be on the opportunity object. So let's go there. and click Fields and Relationships. And we're going to click a new roll-up summary. And click Roll-up Summary. Hit Next. And this is, I'm just going to call this Sum of Total Price. Now, actually, what this is going to show is the amount. But it's also going to show, that's if I've got products. But if I've not got products, it's going to show 0 because, and that will tell me that there are no products against the opportunity. And what that also tells me is that is about the integrity of the opportunity. As a sales manager, if I have a roll-up summary field that says what's the sum of total price, and I know we're all supposed to be using products to itemize our deals, what that tells me is that I can't necessarily rely on the amount field, or because it could be too early in the sales cycle, or because we've got a naughty sales guy that's not, or a naughty salesperson that's not added products to the opportunity yet. So it can help to inform your forecast accuracy. So let's go to Next, and we are going to sum the opportunity product object, because that's the only child object to the opportunity. Now you can create custom objects that are children to the opportunity as well, but what you can't have is opportunity being a child to a custom object. You'll have to create a junction object in between. So master object is opportunity, summarized object is opportunity product. We are going to hit sum on the left-hand side. Then on the right-hand side, so those of you who are experiencing issues, and look what happens here. When you change the roll-up type, your drop-down is enabled and disabled. So just check and make sure that you've selected the correct roll-up type. And if you have got issues with this changing, it's worth knowing this is a JavaScript function. Otherwise, it wouldn't be enabling and disabling based on what you select. So you might find reloading the page helps, or clearing your browser history can help as well. So we're going to sum, and we're going to sum the total price. Now let me explain the difference between these prices. And I'm going to do that. I'm going to do this using the medium of drawing, because this is sometimes a little bit. So I've had customers where I've gone round and round in circles in meetings explaining what this means. So I'm just going to take a few moments to explain these prices rather than do a whole session on it. Now on the opportunity, so as you know, or many of you have seen, you can actually create what's known as a product record in Salesforce. And you link your products to opportunities using opportunity products, right? Pretty standard database mentality there. We also refer to them as opportunity line items. And it helps you to break down what you're selling to a customer. And it also enables you to sell products to customers at different prices and in different currencies. So the way it works is that you have a bunch of standard objects, as you know. You have the opportunity, which is related to an account. So one account can have many opportunities, but also one opportunity can have many products. And the relationship between opportunities and products in Salesforce is slightly different to what you would expect. You don't relate an opportunity directly to a product. Instead, there are a couple of tables in between. And the reason there are tables in between is because of this functionality that's needed for selling at different prices and in different currencies. Okay, so let me draw this out for you. Here's your account, which should look familiar. So here is your accounts table. Copy paste. Oh dear, what did I do? Accounts. Opportunities are related to accounts as parent and child. So one opportunity can have many accounts. And that's what this notation tells you. This is one account, many opportunity. Not what I just said, because I got it wrong. Copy and paste. Then we have underneath, we have opportunity products. And this reflects, obviously, the breakdown of an opportunity. What are you selling? What's the makeup of this opportunity amount? Now, the way this is linked is through some other relationships. Now, products themselves are their own object. So a product might be a light bulb. Now, you might sell that light bulb at different prices depending on what year it is, depending on who's buying it, depending on what sector you're selling it into, depending on whether it's wholesale or retail. And what that enables you to do is actually create something that's called a price book. And your price book is where you determine what are the different options that I'm going to make available to my salespeople when they want to sell certain products to a customer. Now, opportunities and price books are not linked per se, not openly in terms of what we need to deal with, but you should know that you can only have one price book per opportunity. So if you're selling a light bulb, if you're selling 10,000 light bulbs wholesale to a customer, at wholesale price to a customer, and you want to discount it, that's fine, right? You can just discount it on the opportunity product. But if you're selling one order to the same customer in Great British pounds and a second order to a customer in euros, you will have to do two different opportunities, because there's two things that come into play. Your opportunities your price book and your products have to be sold in the same currency as the opportunity. But also your price books determine what products can be selected for different things. So I'm just thinking back to my D&B days, we had two different price books. We had one price book which was for strategic customers, which had set prices in there. And then we had another price book which was for kind of everyone else. And there were some products that we sold only to strategic customers, and they couldn't be sold to others. So we had to make sure we selected the correct price book so that we had those extra products available to add to our opportunity. So it's a way of applying logic and deciding what products to make available for certain opportunities. Now, there is another relationship that I need to explain about here. We talked about products and price books. Your price book, if you open up a price book, you'll see that there's basically a bunch of products that are listed in there, but they actually show prices and currencies. You don't have those two fields on a product record. Instead, what you have is a junction object. And you might have heard me, I know you have heard me but reference what a junction object is. A junction object is a way of creating relationships between that say different things. So the junction object that we have is called price book entry. Okay, so under that logic, one price book can have many price book entries, right? But also one product could appear in several price books at different prices. So one product can have multiple price book entries. Make sense? I hope so, because I hate explaining this. It's been a while. Okay, Samira. So you can't sell light bulbs using wholesale price book and light switches using standard price book in the same opportunity. That's correct. You either sell the wholesale or you sell from standard. Or you do, and the way you would do that is you would do two opportunities. So the relationship, the way it works in Salesforce is that actually behind the scenes, you're not linking. Here's your products object. here's your opportunities and the opportunity products. This relationship here does not exist. Sorry, the other way around. This doesn't exist because it doesn't actually reflect the pricing that you're allowing and allowing for situations where you need to track what's the standard price of a product and then how much am I actually selling it for. Sure. So Samira, I can't wrap my head around price book versus price book entries. I'll show you in the database in a moment. I just want to clarify. So if we got one product and we've got one price book, a product can't belong to a price book directly. Instead, what we do is we build something in between, which is called price book entries, and then we link those to opportunity products. So this is the way the relationships happen in Salesforce. So what you're effectively saying here, and I'm thinking of a very bad analogy because I'm tying myself up in knots. So if we have one product, okay, I'm going to use the services example. So we have new customers, we have existing customers. New customers, we would sell an implementation to. Existing customers, we wouldn't sell an implementation to. We would sell a managed service, for example. So we would create one product for implementation and a second product for managed services. And then I'll manage it. So they would just be two products. Now let's show that in Salesforce quickly. So I'm going to go to my products tab, which I'm going to go through my 9 tabs. And I've gone a bit off piece, but this is helpful because this relates because of the opportunities and price books and so on. This is something that we always have to get our heads around. So product, this is your standard Salesforce product object. So when we create a product for services, you just click new and create a new record. So this is implementation. Making it as active means it can be selected for an opportunity for a price book. And we can then differentiate it to say like what type of product this is. So here's our implementation, and it just creates a standard record, which should probably just look quite familiar to you now. I'm going to clone this because I'm a bit lazy, but you can click new. And I'm going to create my managed services product. Okay, so what we've done here is we've just created we've done this. This is done. Then what we have to do is in order to use it, we have to add it to a standard price book. So if we go to related, you'll see there's a price book here, right? And the first thing we have to do is to create a standard price. Now, what we're doing here is creating a price book entry. We are creating one of these. We've already done this. We now need to create that. And we do that because what you'll notice in here, wherever you see these crow's feet, you should expect to see a relationship field for that. So you'll see on the price book entry, you'll see a field called product. On the price book entry, you'll also see a field called price book. Let's go and have a look. There's the product, there's the price book, and then we put in a list price. And a list price is what you should be selling this for. And usually this is calculated outside of Salesforce, somewhere else. And lots of other costs are baked into it, and there's a target margin that's baked into it as well. But this is effectively what you would expect to sell per unit. So for managed services, we might sell a pot of hours at maybe £120 an hour. Okay, we save that. That's now added this product to the standard price book. So let's click on the standard price book. And in the related section, you'll see price book entries. And here are all the products that are sitting within that price book. So if you just remember, price book entry is where you put the price. let's create another new price book entry for implementation, which we are also going to add to the standard price book. And for implementation, you might sell, if you're selling it at if you've got one set rate, then it's easy because you just put the one rate in. But you might, for implementation, you might actually shush Gemma. So you might sell your implementation at a price of £500 an hour, because that might be covering several people, the cost of several people doing that job. Now you have to add any products you create, you can't add them to any other price books until you've added them to the standard price book. So what we've done there, just to summarize what we've done on the data model, we've added one implementation product, one managed services product. We've added the standard prices to a price book via price book entries. Okay, so over here we have our standard price book. And price book entries is the related list for the price book and also for the products. Now, if we want to create other price books, what we can do here is we can go to our 9 dots, our application navigator, and we can look for price book. You can create one of your own. So you might create a 2019 price book. You might create a 2020 price book, and you can activate and deactivate these price books. And it just helps you to enable different prices for different periods. So you might actually have a COVID-19 price book as well. You might discount the rate very heavily, and during this crisis, you switch off all your other price books and you just have the COVID-19 price book where everything's discounted, for example. Let's do new. So if we say for new customers, active, and save. I know, so Kat says, I love the idea of an organization that organized. We can dream. Yes, I know. Yeah, I have tried to implement it for those customers who want to be organized. Then we say existing customers. Now, for existing customers, we might sell managed services. We might sell health checks. We might sell, tickets to different special events and things like that. So that's the justification for having an existing customer's price book. So let's look at the related list. We've got no price book entries. Okay, so there's no products added to this price book with the right standard price. So what we have to do is go and add some products. So this is our existing customers. Now notice that all the products that it's just loading up all the products. These are all the products that you can actually add to this price book. So you could add in a gold, silver, bronze and platinum SLA. So if you're selling managed services, you could split it out by that. So the architecture of your product catalog becomes really important, because you have to think about, do I just sell like a whole managed services package, or do I break it down into different price points, right? So for this instance, I'm just going to hit managed services. I might also keep it simple. And then I'm invited to add some prices. So at the moment, so the list price here is what it should be sold for. Now I might say for existing customers, I will sell managed services for this year, I'm going to sell them at 150, even though as standard, they're 120. I'm ambitious this year. So I hit save. I might also have implementation services that I need to offer because perhaps there's a different department I need to implement for. So I could add that implementation there for existing customers, and I might have in my contract, if you're an existing customer, I'll give you a discount. So instead of 500 a day, it will cost you 400 a day. Okay. Now, if we look at new customers, let's go back to our price books. So and actually there's another way you can get there, because if you understand how all these objects are related to each other, you can find your way around quite simply. I'm going to come away from the existing customers price book, and I'm going to go back to my products, and I'm going to get my implementation. go to related. And here are the price books that the implementation belongs to. And I can see the different prices that they're being sold at. I'm going to add it to my new customer price book. New customer. Currency is pounds. You can also add in different prices per currency. So my product is going to be, oh, and it's important with currency as well. If you've only set up price book entries for one single currency, and then you create an opportunity that's in a different currency, and you try and select one of those products, you won't be able to. You will have to create price book entries that sit within that other currency. So standard price is 500. Maybe this year I'm feeling uber ambitious and I'll charge them £1,000. So what does that mean for your opportunity? Well, let's go and have a look. Go back to it. Let's have a quick recap. So what we've done here is we've set all of this up. We created our implementation and managed services products. We created our new customer and existing customer price books. We have 3 price books. And when we look at implementation, we will see it exists in 3 price books, right? All at different prices. And the value that gives you as a sales manager or a finance manager is that you can see who you're selling differently to. And you can align that with your business strategy. So now when we go to our opportunity, let's look at this one. We can now itemize this opportunity. I'm going to create a new one from scratch for TNR. Why not? TNR. Managed services. This is an existing customer. It's at needs analysis. Sorry, actually, it might be at proposal price quote, because I now know what I need to build up my opportunity with. I expect it to close tomorrow. And save. What you'll then see is, because I didn't put an amount in, there's no amount. Let's look at the products. If I then want to go and add a managed service product, I can click on the products related list, and there are 2 options: add products or choose price book. Choose price book is how you switch from one price book to another, but bear in mind, if you do, you lose the products you've already put on. So I'm just going to add products, and the first thing it's going to do is say, which price book do you want to sell from? Remember, you can only sell from one price book per opportunity. So I am going for existing customers. I'm going to hit save. And I will only see products in the same currency that belong to this price book. So if I'm selling managed services, I'm going to click on that. Go away. And I'm going to click next. Why can't I click next? Oh, that's a bit glitchy. Add products. Managed services. Next. And then I'm presented with what will become the opportunity product, or the opportunity line item. Because on the opportunity line item, it automatically pre-fills in the price for you, but you can override it. But it's also where you say how many units you're selling. Yeah, so Kat says this is a great way to have transparency over prices in a large organization. So like in her old job, they would have different prices in different regions. That's correct. Yes, you would. That's a great use case for price books. So if I'm going to sell, say, 150 hours at £150, I actually also have the option to apply a discount here as well. So if I know that according to this price book, it should be £150, but I have agreed with the customer and my manager that I can sell it for 130 because, you know, they're having some issues and we've been decided to be nice, I can actually override that. There's also a missing field here that I can add to this page, which is a percentage discount. If I want to add a 10% discount, I can do that and it will automatically discount it for me. And there's a lot of jiggery pokery that I've done on opportunity line items before with formula fields to calculate what is the sales price versus the list price, and how do I kind of so because that helps me to calculate how off-piste my salespeople are going. So on the opportunity product, we are able to say what is the quantity, how many units are we selling. The list price is brought in, which is the list, which is basically what's in this price book entry table. We also have a sales price, which is what am I selling it for this opportunity. And then we have a total price. Can anyone guess what total price is? Total price, if they have more than one product, not quite. Total price is shown for the whole line item. Your amount, your opportunity amount is the summarized value of all the products. But it sums the total price because the total price is the quantity times the sales price. Okay? So when you look at the opportunity amount and you've got products on there, what you will see is an aggregation of this total price across all of the products. So if we're doing 150 hours at £130 an hour, we should get quite an interesting pot of cash coming in there. Look, Salesforce figures it all out for you. It figures out that you're going to make that the cost of this opportunity in full is 19.5 grand. Now, if we want to add in, let's say they use up all of their money, all of their pot halfway through the year, because they've decided to use it for an existing for a new project instead of actually scoping it properly. We could add on we could have some extra hours add-ons, but we could but let's say we wanted to report those add-ons instead, separately. If we wanted to look at how many managed services deals did we, so what was the value of our managed services deals that we sold in 1 year versus what's the value of add-ons, that helps us to understand how many hours in the pot we should be selling. So you might want to create a second product, which is managed services add-on, which is priced differently, but gives you that level of insight through your reports. So in this instance, I can then add another line. Like I say, add products. Let's say I add in implementation and managed services as an add-on. I can then line by line add on how many more I want to do. So if I'm going to sell how many, this is per hour, isn't it? So if I'm going to sell an implementation for 500 hours at £400, nice. If I'm going to sell another managed services pot of maybe another 100 hours and save it, just watch my amount. My amount's changed quite a lot, hasn't it? Then you'll notice that discounted amount that we did earlier is based on the total price. So when I was talking about how I would probably prefer to discount at this level instead of at the opportunity level, this is where you might say, I'm going to apply a discount for the add-on or the implementation versus everything else. So instead of discounting for the whole opportunity, you discount per component, if you like. Is this all making sense to people? Cool. So you could get your calculators out and go 150 times 130. That will give you your total price. And if you want to look at that in more detail, you can just click on the line item and it will tell you, right? So list price is 150. Sales price is what you're selling it for in this instance per unit. Quantity is how many you're buying, and your total price is 150 times 130, which equals 19,500. Okay, T, I'm sorry for getting you lost. Happy to go over this again. and I'll back this up and support it with some homework around products and price books as well. It is a tricky concept to get your head around. Okay. So going back to our roll-up summary field, all we're doing here is just aggregating that total price, which should give us the exact same amount that we have on the opportunity, which is why I went off on this tangent to begin with, because I was like, well, Salesforce, you wouldn't actually build this roll-up summary field because Salesforce does it for you already, but it's just to prove the concept. So our field is the sum of total price for the opportunity. We're going to click next. Click next again and add it to the page layout and save it. It still hasn't found those roll-up summaries, has it? So I'm going to switch back to classic and just take a look. Because for this opportunity, I would expect that sum of total price to be 234,500. Let's just have a look. And there we have it. On the left-hand side, our sum of total price, £234,500, which is the exact same as the amount. And then when you look at it, when you look at your prices from here, it kind of makes a bit more sense. Something else I'm going to really quickly do, cheekily, is just make a quick adjustment to the fields that are shown on the related list. That's just because that's how I like to have it. Okay, so scrolling down, I can see the total price for each of these individual lines, which is your implementation, 500 hours at £400 equals 200,000. Your managed services, 150 hours at £130 an hour is 19.5. 100 at 150 an hour is 15,000. So if I add together 200,000, might help to explain it a bit more. 19.5 plus 15,000. I lost it. It should all add up to that, to 234.5. Okay. So that's our total price. So we're going to go back to Trailhead now. Anyone got any more questions? Okay, so we have 20 minutes left. So your sum of opportunities is always 0. Okay, is that because your opportunities don't have amounts, Jeremy? You have amounts. Okay. Let's take a look. Oh, but no price book. Okay. Right. But you're looking, don't worry about that because you're okay. So the field we just did for total price, is that what you're talking about? Or are you looking at the sum of opportunities against the account? Sum of total price. Yeah. Okay. So if it's always 0, take a look at what your sales price is and take a look at your quantities as well. But I'm assuming that maybe you were following along and adding some products. Okay, we'll take that offline, Jeremy. The next one we're going to do is a quick minute. Is another formula field, roll-up summary field on minimum list price. Can anyone guess? No, you don't need to guess because you've probably seen it. But let's take a look. Is this on the opportunity? Yes. So obviously list price is summarized on the opportunity product. So we're going to go to the opportunity. Oh yeah, that was just badly explained. Okay, so roll up summary field on the opportunity. This is going to be called lowest list price. Next. And the summarized object is the opportunity product. And we're going to use minimum again. And we're going to do list price. So this is the lowest list price, being the price that you're supposed to be selling it at from your price book. Next. Next again. Save it. And it's there. So when we look at the opportunity again, I should now see the lowest list price reflected. So that's £150 for all products. Okay, so remembering, just bringing your attention, you might look at that and think, what's going on there? The list price is what you're supposed to be selling the product for in the price book, whereas remember, we overrode some of these prices, so your sales price is a bit higher. So looking at this opportunity, you can see the lowest list price is 150, but we're selling managed services at a rate of 130. So that's telling me as a salesperson that somebody's selling off-piste. There's a discount somewhere, and I need to either just go, yeah, I knew about that, or understand why that discount has happened, and also examine whether that discount has been given within tolerance. Does that make sense? I hope so. Okay, so we're going to do another challenge. So we are going to create a roll-up summary field that determines the potential value of the opportunities associated with an account. This is going to look at how much. So remember we talked, sorry, Afshan says, are we choosing minimum or sum? For that last one, we're choosing min, because we're looking at the lowest price. Whereas summary is adding up all the list prices, which isn't going to help you much. So for this challenge, this is where we're going to be rolling up the expected revenue. Now, expected revenue is the amount times the probability of the opportunity closing. And it's used to determine, it's used for forecasting generally. So this is just looking at what is the potential value of the account in terms of what's open, of what we've been trying and positioning to them. So we're going to add a custom field to the account object. So we're going to go to Object Manager and click Account. And it's going to be a roll-up summary field. So new, roll-up summary. And we're going to summarize information from the opportunity object. And we're going to call our field potential value. And then I'm going to give it a nice description. So the revenue, potential revenue. Next, we're going to summarize opportunities, and we're going to sum, which means add together. Oh my God, that was patronizing. I'm sorry. We're going to sum the expected revenue. Sorry, everyone. And hit next. Leave your field level security as it is. Hit next. Add it to your layouts. Hit save. Okay. Let's go and have a look at it. So TNR core. Let's go up to our account and take a look. We have, yeah, so here we go. Potential value of all open opportunities based on the expected revenue. So we might have amounts of 1.2 million aggregated together, but their expected revenue is directly correlated to their probability of closure. So you've got the amount times the percentage. Okay. So the potential value is what we expect to get. So some people have reported that they don't see expected revenue. Is that when you're creating the field? Do you have the field visible through field level security? Okay, the amount is not a value. Okay. Switch to classic. Do you have the same problem? If you're unable to see these values, just try clicking, reloading the page, refresh the page, and change your radio buttons here. If not, switch to classic, and we can report it to Salesforce as a bit of a bug. And also check your field level security. The amount is not an option, and you're looking at accounts as a master object, and you're trying to summarize opportunities. Okay, without looking at it, I can't tell. So I'll stay behind a little bit longer and try and help. Okay, so expected revenue. Have any of you been able to make the field? Okay, if you've been able to make the field, please go ahead and check your challenge. Okay, some of you still reporting issues. Okay, let's have a wee look then. Okay, we can look at the known issues and see if there's anything happening there. Has anybody managed to complete the second part of the challenge then? Okay, I think what I'll do is I'll stop the recording now, and then I can open up for questions, because we've reached the end of a logical step of topics. So we can do validation rules on Monday, I think. Let's try and troubleshoot for now. So thanks for watching, if you're watching online, and if you're having issues at all, please reach out and we can see about helping in some way. Let's stop recording.